Welcome to the mysterious realm of the Zodiac's most enigmatic mountain goat. There's something undeniably fascinating about Capricorns, those determined souls born between December 22nd and January 20th. While every sign has its unique traits and tendencies, today we're diving deep into one of Capricorn's most defining characteristics, their profound preference for solitude. The image of a lone goat climbing steadily up a treacherous mountain isn't just a random symbol for this earth sign. It perfectly captures the essence of Capricorn energy, resilient, focused, and often deliberately alone. This isn't a coincidence, but a reflection of the Capricorn soul that resonates with independence on a fundamental level. If you've ever found yourself wondering why your Capricorn friend suddenly went silent for days, canceled plans at the last minute, or seems perfectly content spending weekend after weekend in their own company, this exploration will illuminate the complex inner workings of the Capricorn mind. Their preference for solitude isn't a rejection of others, but rather an embracing of their truest nature. Saturn, Capricorn's ruling planet, casts a serious shadow over this sign. As the taskmaster of the Zodiac, Saturn instills in Capricorns a sense of duty, discipline, and responsibility that few other signs can comprehend. This planetary influence creates individuals who feel the weight of their ambitions and goals constantly, a burden they often prefer to carry alone rather than explaining to others who might not understand the gravity of their aspirations. There's a particular stillness that Capricorns seek, a quiet sanctuary where their thoughts can crystallize into actionable plans. In a world that celebrates extroversion and constant connection, the Capricorn's need for solitude can seem strange or even concerning to others. Friends and family might worry. Are they depressed? Are they avoiding us? Have we done something wrong? The truth is far simpler, yet more profound. Capricorns have discovered something that many people spend lifetimes searching for: the ability to be completely at peace in their own company. Look closely at history's great achievers, and you'll find many with strong Capricorn placements in their charts. These individuals understood that groundbreaking work rarely happens in crowded rooms or during constant social interaction. Instead, it emerges from dedicated periods of focus, reflection, and solitary effort. From Benjamin Franklin to Michelle Obama, Capricorn energy has fueled some of humanity's most disciplined minds. Minds that recognize the value of strategic withdrawal from social obligations. This isn't to say that Capricorns don't value connection. On the contrary, when a Capricorn does choose to spend time with someone, it's one of the highest compliments they can pay. It means they have deemed this person worthy of their preciously guarded time and energy. A Capricorn's inner circle may be small, but those within it experience a loyalty and dependability that's unmatched by any other sign. As we explore the 12 specific reasons behind the Capricorn's preference for solitude, you might recognize yourself or someone close to you in these patterns. Perhaps you'll gain insight into why certain people in your life seem to disappear periodically, only to return refreshed and ready to engage again. Or maybe, if you're a Capricorn yourself, you'll feel the relief of being truly seen and understood in your natural inclination toward independence. The journey into Capricorn psychology begins with understanding that their solitude isn't just a preference, it's a necessity. Their ambitious nature requires regular periods of isolation to recharge, refocus, and recommit to their lofty goals. This strategic withdrawal serves a greater purpose in the Capricorn's master plan for life, setting the foundation for everything they hope to achieve. Let's begin by examining the first 3 critical reasons why these Earth sign natives so often choose their own company over social engagement, revealing the method behind what others might mistake as aloofness or antisocial behavior. First reason, their inner fortress of solitude provides the perfect environment for their strategic planning and career advancement. Within the quiet walls of their self-created sanctuary, Capricorns find the ideal conditions for their most powerful work, strategic planning. Unlike many signs who might sketch out loose goals or dreams, Capricorns approach their ambitions with the precision of master architects. They don't just imagine success, they meticulously draft the blueprint that will inevitably lead them there. This level of detailed strategic thinking requires an environment free from the chaos of outside opinions and distractions. When a Capricorn closes their door to the world, they're not simply hiding away. They're entering their personal war room where the battles of their future will be won long before they're fought. Here, surrounded by carefully organized resources and freed from the need to maintain social facades, they can spread out the map of their life and career, marking each milestone with calculated precision. They can spend hours analyzing potential obstacles, planning contingencies, and visualizing the exact path that will lead them to their summit. Watch a Capricorn during these periods of strategic solitude, and you'll witness something remarkable. Their energy changes, becomes more focused, almost tangible in its intensity. Their naturally serious demeanor deepens as they enter a state of flow that would be impossible to maintain in the presence of others who might interrupt with well-meaning but distracting conversation, or, worse still, casual dismissal of goals that the Capricorn holds sacred. This isn't just productivity, it's a form of meditation for the Capricorn soul. Their ambitions aren't separate from their identity. They're the very scaffolding upon which they build their sense of self. To plan in solitude is to commune with their deepest purpose, undiluted by the competing priorities that inevitably arise in social settings. Second reason, social gatherings drain the precious energy they'd rather invest in achieving their ambitious goals. For Capricorns, energy is not an infinite resource to be spent freely. It's a precious commodity to be invested wisely. Where some signs might find themselves energized by social interaction, drawing vitality from the exchange of ideas and emotions, Capricorns often experience the opposite effect. Each hour spent navigating the complex dynamics of social gatherings represents an hour not devoted to their carefully constructed life plan. This isn't mere introversion, though many Capricorns do identify as introverts. It's a pragmatic approach to energy management that few other signs truly understand. In the Capricorn's mental accounting, every social obligation comes with a cost-benefit analysis. Will this gathering advance my goals? Will the connections made justify the time invested? Will I gain knowledge, opportunity, or strategic advantage that outweighs the energy expenditure? The calculations become even more complex when considering the emotional labor involved. Small talk feels particularly burdensome to the Capricorn mind, which prefers depth and purpose in conversation. The effort required to engage in what they perceive as superficial exchanges can leave them feeling depleted for days afterward, a price too high when measured against their ambitious timeline. Even more draining are social situations that require them to temper their naturally serious nature. The pressure to appear more lighthearted, to laugh at jokes they find trivial, or to engage in conversations they consider unproductive creates a particular kind of exhaustion that only solitude can remedy. Alone, they can drop this mask entirely and redirect that saved energy toward endeavors that actually move the needle on their goals. For the Capricorn, this isn't selfishness, it's self-preservation. They understand intuitively what science has confirmed. Willpower and focus are finite resources that must be protected and directed with intention. By choosing solitude, they're not rejecting connection, they're prioritizing their ultimate purpose. Third reason, in solitude they can maintain their carefully crafted walls without fear of someone discovering their surprisingly sensitive core. Beneath the stoic exterior of every Capricorn lies a heart of unexpected tenderness. This is perhaps the most closely guarded secret of the Zodiac's mountain goat, that behind their practical, sometimes stern facade exists a depth of feeling that would surprise even those who consider themselves close to the Capricorn in question. This sensitivity isn't a weakness to the evolved Capricorn. It's a powerful internal compass that guides their decisions and fuels their determination. However, they've learned through experience that exposing this softer side makes them vulnerable in ways they find difficult to navigate. Early wounds from times when their earnest emotions were dismissed or used against them have taught them the value of protective boundaries. In solitude, these walls can temporarily come down. Alone, a Capricorn can process disappointments, celebrate private victories, or simply experience the full spectrum of their emotions without the self-consciousness that comes with being observed. This emotional authenticity is restorative, allowing them to reconnect with their true selves away from judgmental eyes. The paradox of Capricorn is that while they appear to be the most self-sufficient, least emotionally needy of the zodiac, they often experience feelings with a surprising intensity. Their earth sign nature means they feel deeply and permanently. Emotions don't simply wash through them, but rather become embedded in their being. Each disappointment, each betrayal, each moment of being misunderstood leaves a lasting impression that shapes their approach to future relationships. Solitude provides the safe space needed to process these complex emotional landscapes without the pressure to appear over it before they truly are. It allows them the luxury of emotional honesty that social settings rarely accommodate. In their private moments, a Capricorn might journal their deepest thoughts, shed tears over setbacks that they publicly shrugged off, or allow themselves to fully experience hope for dreams they're too practical to voice aloud to others. This emotional processing is not just therapeutic, it's strategic. By regularly creating space to acknowledge and work through their feelings in private, Capricorns prevent emotional buildup that might otherwise compromise their legendary self-control at inopportune moments. It's another form of the disciplined self-maintenance that characterizes this sign. The walls a Capricorn builds aren't intended to keep everyone out permanently. They're designed with careful gates that open selectively to those who have proven their trustworthiness over time. But even with their closest confidants, there remains a sacred inner chamber that belongs to the Capricorn alone, a space they retreat to not out of distrust, but out of the deep self-knowledge that some parts of their journey must be walked in solitude. As these first three reasons demonstrate, the Capricorn's preference for alone time is far more nuanced than simple antisocial behavior. It's a carefully calibrated approach to life that honors their unique needs for strategic thinking, energy conservation, and emotional authenticity. Their solitude serves as both workshop and sanctuary, a space where their outward success and inner peace are cultivated with equal care. This strategic withdrawal isn't about rejection of connection, but rather about creating the conditions necessary for Capricorn to show up fully in the relationships they do choose to nurture. By protecting their inner resources through periods of solitude, they ensure they have something meaningful to offer when they do engage with their carefully selected circle. Fourth reason, they secretly enjoy their reputation as the zodiac's lone wolf. It adds to their mysterious aura. There exists a certain power in being unknowable. While Capricorns would rarely admit it openly, many harbor a quiet appreciation for the mystique that surrounds their solitary nature. In a world where oversharing has become the norm and privacy feels increasingly rare, the Capricorn stands apart, a figure of intrigue precisely because they reveal so little of themselves. This cultivated mystery isn't rooted in manipulation, but rather in their natural tendency toward privacy combined with an intuitive understanding of human psychology. They've observed how people are drawn to that which they cannot fully access or understand. The Capricorn, who declines 10 social invitations only to accept the 11th, becomes the most interesting person in the room simply by virtue of their scarcity. The lone wolf reputation grants them a certain freedom that more socially integrated signs might envy. When expectations for their participation are already low, they can move through the world unburdened by the pressure to constantly engage. A Capricorn can disappear for weeks into a creative project or personal journey without triggering the concerned messages that would flood the phone of a typically more social sign. This reputation also serves as a filtering mechanism for relationships. Those intimidated by their self-contained nature will keep their distance, while individuals who appreciate depth over frequency and connection will be intrigued enough to make genuine efforts. This natural selection process helps ensure that the people who ultimately enter the Capricorn's inner circle possess the patience and substance they value. In professional contexts, this air of mystery often translates to respect. Colleagues who cannot easily read a Capricorn tend to project competence and wisdom onto their reserved demeanor. Their selective contributions in meetings carry more weight precisely because they don't feel compelled to fill every silence. When a habitually private person finally speaks, people listen. Another benefit of the lone wolf reputation that Capricorns intuitively understand. Behind closed doors, many Capricorns smile to themselves when hearing others' interpretations of their private nature. The assumptions that they're engaged in something important, fascinating, or exclusive when they're alone often amuse them, especially when the reality might be as simple as enjoying a quiet evening with a book, yet they rarely correct these impressions, understanding that sometimes the idea people form is more effective than any image they could deliberately construct. Fifth reason, alone time allows them to process emotions privately, avoiding the vulnerability of showing feelings in public. Emotional processing for a Capricorn resembles nothing so much as careful accounting, a methodical balancing of the emotional books that requires concentration, honesty, and absolute privacy. Where some signs process feelings through external expression, talking, crying, or physical movement, Capricorns turn inward, examining each emotion with the same precision they bring to their professional endeavors. This internal processing isn't coldness, though it's often misinterpreted as such. Rather, it's a profound respect for the complexity of human emotion, combined with an aversion to performative vulnerability. Capricorns find something distinctly uncomfortable about displaying unresolved feelings before they've been properly understood and integrated. To them, public emotional processing feels not only premature, but potentially reckless, like publishing financial statements before verifying the numbers. There's also a matter of emotional sovereignty that Capricorns hold dear. When processing feelings alone, they maintain complete control over the narrative, free from well-meaning but potentially misguided interpretations from others. They've learned through experience that emotions shared too soon often return to them transformed by others' projections, complicating rather than clarifying their original experience. Consider how a Capricorn might process disappointment. Alone in their space, they'll mentally retrace the situation, examining their expectations against reality, identifying where misalignments occurred, extracting valuable lessons, and finally integrating the experience into their broader understanding of life. This thorough process might take days or weeks, but when complete, they emerge with clarity that feels worth the solitary journey. The alternative, processing these feelings in real time with others, presents too many variables for the Capricorn's comfort. The potential for misunderstanding, premature consolation, or worse, having their feelings minimized, represents an emotional risk they're typically unwilling to take. In solitude, their vulnerability remains protected within the confines of their own compassionate self-awareness. This private emotional processing also honors the Capricorn's deep need for authenticity. They would rather say nothing than offer a diluted or performative version of their feelings. When they do eventually share emotional insights, these come as carefully distilled wisdom rather than raw expression, a gift they can offer with confidence rather than an uncertain exposure that leaves them feeling defenseless. Sixth reason, their perfectionist nature means they'd rather complete tasks independently than risk someone else's subpar contribution. The perfectionism that runs through the Capricorn spirit isn't a simple desire for excellence. It's a profound commitment to integrity that permeates everything they touch. This manifestation of Saturn's influence creates individuals who don't just aim high, but who feel personally responsible for maintaining standards that others might consider unnecessarily exacting. When working alone, Capricorns establish uncompromising parameters for success that go beyond what most would consider more than adequate. Each detail receives their full attention. Each decision reflects their complete consideration. The process becomes almost meditative, a focused application of their considerable talents toward an outcome that will bear the unmistakable mark of their exacting standards. Collaboration, by contrast, introduces variables that the controlled Capricorn finds deeply unsettling. The mere possibility that another person might approach a task with less rigor, less attention to detail, or less commitment to excellence creates a level of anxiety that can overshadow any potential benefits of shared workload. they've experienced too many occasions where they've had to retrofit substandard work, or worse, attach their name to something that doesn't reflect their standards. This isn't mere control, though control certainly plays a role. It's about the integrity of creation and the peace that comes from knowing every element has been executed exactly as intended. For a Capricorn, the additional time and effort required to complete something independently is a worthwhile investment if the alternative means compromising on quality. Consider a Capricorn planning an event, preparing a presentation, or managing a project. Their preference for handling key components themselves isn't arrogance, but a recognition of the discomfort they would feel if those elements were executed below their standards. The psychological toll of potential disappointment outweighs the practical benefits of delegation for many tasks they consider important. There's also an efficiency calculation that others often miss. While initial collaboration might seem faster, the Capricorn has learned through experience that the time spent communicating their exact vision, checking progress, and potentially redoing unsatisfactory work often exceeds the time required to simply handle it themselves from the outset. Their solitary approach isn't always about perfectionism for its own sake. It's sometimes the most practical path to their desired outcome. This self-reliance becomes self-reinforcing over time as they accumulate experiences of tasks completed to their satisfaction through independent effort. Alongside memories of disappointment from collaboration, their preference for working alone strengthens. Each successful solo project becomes evidence supporting their approach, creating a powerful confirmation bias that's difficult to disrupt. The maturation process for many Capricorns involves learning to distinguish between tasks that truly require their personal touch and those where good enough from others can be accepted. This discernment doesn't come easily to a sign so naturally oriented toward excellence in all things, but those who develop this wisdom find a more sustainable balance between their perfectionist tendencies and practical reality. At their most evolved, Capricorns can transform this perfectionism from a burden into a gift, creating systems and standards that elevate not just their own work, but that of everyone around them. Their preference for solitary work becomes not a rejection of others, but a specialized contribution that honors their unique strengths and particular form of genius. As these three additional reasons illustrate, the emotional dimensions of a Capricorn's solitude are as strategically important as the practical benefits covered earlier. Their alone time serves as both shield and sanctuary, protecting their vulnerable core while creating space for the authentic emotional processing and uncompromising standards that define their approach to life. Seventh reason, Capricorns view solitude as productive self-investment rather than isolation. Every moment alone is a chance to improve. The Capricorn relationship with solitude represents a fundamental philosophical difference from how many others approach time spent alone. Where some might view solitary hours with apprehension or consider them empty spaces to be filled, Capricorns recognize these precious intervals as their most valuable opportunities for growth and self-development. This perspective transforms what might otherwise be perceived as isolation into something far more purposeful, a deliberate investment in their own evolution. For the disciplined Capricorn, an evening alone isn't simply time without company. It's a rare opening in which they can pursue mastery of skills, deepen their knowledge, or refine aspects of themselves that will serve their long-term vision. The quiet apartment becomes not an empty space, but a personal laboratory where experiments in self-improvement unfold without external judgment or interruption. This productivity-centered approach to solitude creates a unique psychological advantage. While others might feel diminished by time alone, perhaps wondering what they're missing or why they haven't been included, Capricorns experience the opposite effect. Their solitude becomes evidence of their commitment to excellence, reinforcing their identity as individuals who are willing to sacrifice immediate pleasures for future rewards, a core value of Saturn-ruled signs. Consider how differently a Capricorn experiences a cancelled social engagement compared to many other signs. Where some might feel disappointment or even rejection, the Capricorn often experiences a private surge of satisfaction. not because they dislike the person who invited them, but because they've suddenly received the gift of unexpected hours for their personal projects. That genealogy research, language learning program, or professional certification they've been working toward can now progress further, bringing them one step closer to their goals. This mindset extends beyond explicitly productive activities to encompass their entire approach to alone time. Even periods of apparent rest are viewed through this lens of self-investment. A quiet evening of reading isn't merely entertainment, but intellectual development. A solitary walk becomes not just exercise, but strategic thinking time. A meditation practice isn't simply stress relief, but emotional resilience training. Every moment alone is cataloged mentally as serving their evolution in some capacity. This perspective creates a virtuous cycle that reinforces their preference for solitude. Each period spent alone produces tangible progress in areas they value, which in turn makes future solitary time appear even more valuable. While others might worry about spending too much time alone, Capricorns more often concern themselves with securing enough quality solitude amid life's demands. The most evolved Capricorns eventually develop what might be called a productivity without pressure approach to their alone time, maintaining their investment mindset while releasing rigid expectations about outcomes. This balanced perspective allows them to honor their natural inclination toward growth-oriented solitude without transforming every private moment into another demanding performance metric. Eighth reason, their Saturn-ruled minds require regular periods of uninterrupted reflection to maintain their legendary self-discipline. The influence of Saturn, Capricorn's ruling planet, extends far beyond their outward characteristics of responsibility and ambition. At a deeper level, it shapes how their minds process information, make decisions, and maintain the exceptional self-discipline for which they are known. This Saturnian mental architecture requires specific conditions to function optimally, chief among them being regular periods of profound, uninterrupted reflection, where more mercurial signs might thrive on spontaneity and rapid shifts of attention. The Capricorn mind works more like a sophisticated analog system that requires proper calibration. Their thought processes tend to be methodical, thorough, and sequential rather than intuitive or scattered. Interruptions don't merely pause this system, they actively disrupt it, often requiring a complete reset of their mental processes. This distinctive cognitive style explains why Capricorns so often seek solitude when facing important decisions or working through complex problems. In isolation, they can engage their full analytical capabilities without the mental taxation of simultaneously processing social cues, responding to others' input, or navigating interruptions. Their thinking becomes clearer, deeper, and more reliable, accessing a level of discernment that often remains inaccessible in social settings. The self-discipline that Capricorns manifest doesn't emerge spontaneously, but requires regular mental maintenance through reflective solitude. During these periods, they essentially recommit to their core values and long-term vision, reinforcing the internal structures that enable them to resist temptations, delay gratification, and persist through difficulties that would deter less determined signs. This process resembles nothing so much as a form of secular meditation, a disciplined review of their progress, recalibration of their efforts, and renewal of their commitment to the path they've chosen. Without regular access to this reflective state, Capricorns often report feeling disconnected from their sense of purpose and less able to maintain the disciplined approach that defines them. The need for this reflective solitude becomes especially pronounced during periods of stress or significant change. When facing major life transitions, increased responsibilities, or unexpected challenges, Capricorns instinctively withdraw more frequently. This isn't avoidance, but a strategic response. They are accessing the mental clarity needed to navigate complexity with their characteristic wisdom. Those closest to Capricorns learn to recognize and respect these reflective withdrawals as essential to their well-being rather than taking them personally. The partner who can say, "You seem like you need some time to process. Why don't I handle things this evening while you take space for yourself?" has understood something fundamental about loving a Capricorn well. Ninth reason, They've learned through experience that self-reliance is more dependable than waiting for others. Behind every Capricorn's preference for handling things independently lies a history of lessons learned, sometimes painfully, about the reliability gap between their own standards and others' follow-through. These experiences aren't typically dramatic betrayals, but rather an accumulation of small disappointments that collectively taught them a consistent truth. The most dependable person in their life is the one they see in the mirror. This learned self-reliance begins forming early. The Capricorn child often displays a precocious independence, taking on responsibilities without being asked, and developing solutions to their own problems rather than seeking adult intervention. These early experiences establish a foundational belief that becomes reinforced throughout life. Depending on oneself is not just preferable but often necessary. As they move through adolescence and early adulthood, this tendency solidifies through countless interactions where their expectations exceed others' delivery. The group project, where they complete most of the work, the friend who consistently arrives late, the colleague who requires multiple reminders to complete their portion of a task. Each instance confirms their suspicion that entrusting important matters to others introduces unnecessary risk. What looks like control issues to outside observers feels like rational risk management to the Capricorn. Their preference for handling matters themselves isn't about inability to delegate or collaborate. It's about a pragmatic assessment of reliability probabilities based on extensive personal data. When something truly matters to them, the statistical likelihood of personal execution meeting their standards simply outweighs the potential benefits of shared responsibility. This self-reliance extends beyond practical tasks to emotional and psychological support. Many Capricorns develop sophisticated internal resources for managing stress, processing disappointment, and motivating themselves through difficult periods. These self-soothing and self-motivating capabilities often exceed what external support could provide, further reinforcing their preference for handling challenges independently. The mature Capricorn eventually distinguishes between healthy self-reliance and isolating self-sufficiency. They learn to identify the select individuals who consistently meet or exceed their standards, people whose reliability has been thoroughly demonstrated over time. With these rare trusted allies, they can relax their vigilance and experience the benefits of genuine interdependence. Yet even with their most trusted companions, Capricorns maintain certain aspects of self-reliance that have served them well. They typically preserve financial independence, maintain their own safe spaces, and keep private their deepest vulnerabilities, not out of distrust, but as a form of self-respect and personal security that honors the lessons of their experience. This preference for self-reliance creates a particular kind of freedom that Capricorns deeply value. By developing comprehensive capabilities across various life domains, they've constructed lives that don't depend on others' consistency or availability. This independence allows them to pursue their goals with minimal external constraints, a condition that aligns perfectly with their ambitious nature. The solitude that accompanies self-reliance isn't experienced as loneliness, but as liberation. In their private domain, Capricorns enjoy the quiet satisfaction of a life built on their own terms, according to their own standards, progressing at their chosen pace. This autonomy represents one of the greatest rewards of the Capricorn path, one worth the solitude it sometimes requires. As these three additional reasons demonstrate, the productive dimension of Capricorn solitude represents a sophisticated approach to personal development, mental clarity, and reliable execution. Their alone time isn't merely preference, but pragmatism, a strategic response to both internal needs and external realities that aligns perfectly with their long-term objectives and core values. 10th reason, the quiet solitude allows them to hear their own inner wisdom, which they trust far more than external opinions. In the depths of Capricorn, solitude exists a profound communion with a voice many others have lost the ability to hear clearly, their own inner wisdom. This internal guidance system, uncluttered by external noise and unswayed by others' perspectives, represents one of the Capricorn's most valuable but least visible assets. Their deliberate cultivation of quiet spaces isn't merely about productivity or emotional processing. It's about maintaining access to this essential inner compass. For Capricorns, this inner wisdom isn't abstract or mystical, but intensely practical, a distillation of their lived experience, careful observations, and natural discernment. It speaks in the language of subtle knowing rather than dramatic revelation, often manifesting as a quiet certainty about which path to take when facing life's inevitable crossroads. This guidance requires specific conditions to emerge clearly, chief among them being the absence of competing voices and opinions. The modern world presents particular challenges for this connection to inner wisdom. In an era of constant input, social media notifications, 24-hour news cycles, endless opportunities for comparison, and the relentless solicitation of external validation, maintaining clear access to one's own knowing has become increasingly difficult. Capricorns instinctively recognize this threat and respond by creating protected spaces where their inner voice can be heard above the cultural cacophony. Their trust in this inner guidance isn't naive, but evidence-based. Throughout their lives, Capricorns collect data points comparing outcomes when they followed external advice versus their own intuition. The pattern becomes unmistakable over time. When they honor their internal knowing, even when it contradicts conventional wisdom or popular opinion, they consistently achieve more satisfying and sustainable results. This preference for inner guidance over external input can appear as stubbornness to those who don't understand its foundation. What looks like rigid adherence to their own ideas is actually profound trust in a guidance system that has proven its reliability through countless trials. When a Capricorn appears unmoved by persuasive arguments or popular consensus, they're not being difficult. They're remaining faithful to an inner knowing that has earned their trust. The most evolved Capricorns develop an exquisite discernment about which external perspectives merit consideration. They don't categorically dismiss all outside input, but filter it through their own wisdom, incorporating what resonates and releasing what doesn't. This selective integration allows them to benefit from others' insights without surrendering their autonomy or clouding their internal clarity. In solitude, this connection to inner wisdom deepens through practices that might appear outwardly simple, but contain profound internal dimensions. The Capricorn taking a solitary walk in nature, journaling at their desk before dawn, or sitting in contemplation as evening falls isn't merely passing time alone. They're actively engaged in a dialogue with their deepest knowing, asking questions and receiving guidance that will inform their next steps. 11th reason. Their calculated approach to relationships means they're selective about energy expenditure, and most social interactions simply don't offer sufficient return on investment. Beneath the Capricorn's selective social engagement lies a sophisticated energy economy, one that views personal energy as capital to be invested wisely rather than currency to be spent freely. This isn't cold calculation, but practical stewardship of a finite resource they've learned to value highly. When deciding how to allocate their energy, Capricorns instinctively evaluate potential returns with the precision of master investors. The metrics in this calculation extend far beyond simple enjoyment or entertainment value. Capricorns assess relationships and social engagements across multiple dimensions: intellectual stimulation, emotional depth, practical utility, alignment with values, potential for meaningful connection, and compatibility with long-term goals. This multifaceted evaluation happens largely unconsciously, but influences their social choices profoundly. The challenge for many Capricorns is that when measured against these criteria, numerous social interactions fail to justify their energy investment. The casual gathering that offers little beyond surface conversation, the obligation-driven event that serves no purpose beyond appearance, the relationship maintained solely from habit or convenience, all register as net losses in the Capricorn energy economy. This selective approach creates natural friction with a society that often equates social availability with character value. Capricorns frequently encounter judgment for declining invitations or limiting their social circles, facing accusations of being antisocial, elitist, or even unfriendly. These mischaracterizations miss the fundamental reality that Capricorns aren't avoiding connection. They're curating it with intention. When a Capricorn does invest energy in a relationship or social situation, the engagement is complete and genuine, free from the fatigue of overextended social calendars and performative interactions. They bring their full presence and considerable depth to the connections they choose to nurture. This quality over quantity approach often results in fewer but more meaningful relationships, a pattern that aligns perfectly with their authentic needs. The paradox many fail to recognize is that by protecting their energy through selective social engagement, Capricorns actually become more valuable in their chosen relationships. The friend who declines 10 invitations but shows up fully for the 11th, bringing thoughtful insights, genuine presence, and practical support, often contributes more meaningfully than those who attend everything but bring only partial attention. With maturity, many Capricorns develop more transparent communication about this aspect of their nature. Rather than offering vague excuses for declining invitations or withdrawing without explanation when overwhelmed, they learn to articulate their needs and boundaries clearly. This honesty, though initially challenging for some to hear, ultimately creates more authentic relationships based on mutual understanding rather than obligation. For those seeking closer connection with Capricorns, recognizing and respecting this energy economy represents the most direct path, the invitation that acknowledges their need for advance notice, the relationship that doesn't demand constant contact, the understanding that their absence isn't rejection but resource management. These approaches honor the Capricorn's nature and often receive greater investment in return. 12th, reason. Within their private sanctuary, they can temporarily remove the responsible, serious mask they wear for the world and simply exist without expectations. Perhaps the most poignant dimension of Capricorn solitude, and the one least visible to outside observers, is the profound relief it offers from the weight of expectation they carry in almost every other context. As the Zodiac's designated adults, Capricorns move through life bearing a responsibility that begins forming in childhood and compounds with each passing year. Their solitude offers the only reliable respite from this perpetual weight. The responsible one identity begins shaping early for most Capricorns, whether through family dynamics that positioned them as unusually mature, educational settings that rewarded their natural discipline, or innate temperament that inclined them towards seriousness. They learned quickly that dependability garnered the approval and recognition they valued. This pattern, reinforced throughout development, eventually crystallizes into a core aspect of their self-concept. While this responsible identity serves them well in many contexts, it exacts a psychological toll that accumulates over time. The constant vigilance required to maintain standards, anticipate problems, fulfill obligations, and project competence creates a particular kind of fatigue that few other signs fully comprehend. This isn't merely social exhaustion, but something deeper, soul tiredness that comes from perpetually carrying more than one's share. Within the sanctuary of solitude, this burden can temporarily be set down. Alone, Capricorns need not maintain the appearance of having everything under control. They can acknowledge uncertainties, express doubts, explore fantasies, or simply exist without the weight of others' expectations. This psychological unburdening represents a form of freedom available nowhere else in their experience. The privacy of their personal space allows expressions that would surprise those who know them primarily through their public persona. The stoic Capricorn, who never shows vulnerability, might shed tears over a moving film. The disciplined professional might dance with abandoned joy to music they'd never admit enjoying. The serious intellectual might indulge in silly humor or childlike wonder. These moments aren't contradictions, but completions, aspects of a complex personality finding expression in the only space safe enough to contain them. This freedom from expectations extends to relief from physical presentation as well. The Capricorn, whose professional role demands impeccable appearance, can release the exhausting vigilance of being perpetually observed. Comfortable clothes replace carefully selected outfits, natural expressions replace managed impressions, and the body can exist without performing for external evaluation. This physical unburdening complements the psychological release, creating a comprehensive reprieve. Perhaps most significantly, solitude offers Capricorns temporary liberation from the future-focused mentality that characterizes much of their experience. Their natural orientation toward long-term goals, while valuable for achievement, can make full presence in the current moment elusive. In private, they can occasionally suspend the constant planning, evaluating, and projecting to simply exist in the now, a state of being rather than becoming that provides essential balance to their driven nature. The evolved Capricorn eventually recognizes this aspect of their solitude as not merely preference but necessity, a form of self-care that preserves their capacity to fulfill the responsibilities they genuinely value. Rather than seeing it as indulgence, they understand it as maintenance of the internal resources that make their contributions possible. This recognition transforms potential guilt about setting boundaries into conviction about honoring needs. For those who love Capricorns, understanding this dimension of their solitude offers a pathway to supporting them more effectively. The partner who occasionally says, "You've been carrying so much, why don't you take a day completely to yourself?" isn't enabling isolation, but demonstrating profound care. They're recognizing that the Capricorn's periodic withdrawal isn't rejection, but replenishment, a necessary rhythm in the music of their unique life. As these final three reasons illustrate, the inner dimensions of Capricorn solitude contain some of its most essential benefits. Their alone time serves not merely practical purposes, but existential ones, creating space for authentic guidance, intentional energy management, and temporary freedom from the weight of responsibility. Through these elements, solitude becomes not isolation, but integration, a vital practice that enables them to bring their full wisdom, presence, and strength to every aspect of their carefully constructed lives. Throughout our exploration of the Capricorn's profound preference for solitude, we've uncovered 12 distinct dimensions of this defining trait, each revealing deeper layers of the Zodiac's most self-contained sign. What initially appears as simple introversion or aloofness to casual observers reveals itself as a sophisticated strategy for both achievement and self-preservation when properly understood. We discovered how Capricorns create strategic fortresses of solitude where their ambitious planning flourishes without distraction. We observed their pragmatic approach to energy management, recognizing social interactions as investments that must yield meaningful returns. We explored their need for private emotional processing, a space where their surprisingly sensitive cores can experience authentic feeling without vulnerability or judgment. The Capricorn's perfectionist nature emerged as another compelling reason for their solitary work style, revealing how their exacting standards often make independent execution the most efficient path to their vision. We witnessed how they transform what others might experience as isolation into productive self-investment, with every moment alone becoming an opportunity for growth and refinement. Perhaps most poignantly, we uncovered the profound relief that solitude offers these perpetual carriers of responsibility. Those rare moments when they can set down the weight of others' expectations and simply exist without performing the role of the dependable one. This psychological unburdening represents a form of freedom available nowhere else in their experience, making solitude not merely preference, but necessity for their continued well-being. The Capricorns' trust in their inner wisdom emerged as a foundational aspect of their nature, a quiet knowing that speaks most clearly in the absence of external voices and opinions. This connection to their internal guidance system, maintained through deliberate cultivation of quiet spaces, provides direction that has consistently proven more reliable than conventional wisdom or popular consensus. What becomes evident through this comprehensive examination is that the Capricorn's preference for solitude isn't rejection of connection, but rather a sophisticated approach to life that honors their unique needs for strategic thinking, energy conservation, emotional authenticity, and periodic relief from expectation. Their alone time serves as both workshop and sanctuary, a space where their outward success and inner peace are cultivated with equal care. If you recognize yourself in these patterns, know that your need for solitude isn't something to apologize for or overcome, but rather a natural expression of your Capricorn essence. The time you spend alone isn't isolation, but integration, a vital practice that enables you to bring your full wisdom, presence, and strength to every aspect of your carefully constructed life. For those who love Capricorns, understanding these dimensions offers pathways to supporting them more effectively. The partner who occasionally says, "You've been carrying so much, why don't you take a day completely to yourself?" isn't enabling isolation but demonstrating profound care. They're recognizing that the Capricorn's periodic withdrawal isn't rejection, but replenishment, a necessary rhythm in the music of their unique life. If you found value in this exploration of Capricorn psychology, we invite you to become part of our astrological community at Secret of the Zodiac. Subscribe to our channel to receive notifications about our daily zodiac analyses that offer this same level of depth and nuance for every sign. Our library of videos provides insights into compatibility, career paths, emotional patterns, and spiritual growth through the powerful lens of astrological wisdom. We also encourage you to participate actively in building this community. Leave a comment below sharing which of these 12 reasons resonated most strongly with you. Are you a Capricorn who recognized yourself in these patterns? Or perhaps you love a Capricorn and gained new understanding of their need for space. Your experiences and insights enrich our collective understanding and help others feel less alone in their astrological journey. If you found this video particularly illuminating, please consider supporting our work through Super Thanks. This financial contribution helps cover the considerable costs of producing daily in-depth astrological content and allows us to maintain the quality and frequency of uploads that our community has come to expect. Your support directly enables us to continue our mission of bringing sophisticated astrological wisdom to those seeking deeper self-understanding. Finally, remember that while astrology offers profound insights into our natural tendencies, it also illuminates pathways for growth. For Capricorns, the journey often involves learning to balance necessary solitude with meaningful connection, honoring their need for private regeneration while still allowing select others to witness their remarkable depth. Wherever you find yourself on this continuum, know that our astrological community welcomes your unique perspective and values your presence. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the Capricorn soul. Until our stars cross again in tomorrow's video, may your own inner wisdom guide you truly.